The movie starts in the beautiful city of France, where a woman named Elise is working as an undercover agent. The French police have been keeping an eye on her because she was involved with a criminal named Alexander Pierce, who is wanted for money laundering. Elise disappears for a year after trying to catch Pierce, but then she suddenly reappears in France as his girlfriend. The police are watching her closely, hoping she'll lead them to Pierce. Despite being followed by the police, Elise remains calm and collected. She orders food in a cafe while two other men closely watch her on the side. A male courier approaches her and gives her a mysterious letter from Pierce. The police are alarmed as this is an unusual routine for her. The police called Inspector John Atchison, the head of the operation who is in Scotland Yard, and told him about the unusual activity. They quickly take action and arrest the courier, assuming he's Pierce. The letter instructs her to ride a train at an exact time and to pick a man with the same build as Pierce to mislead the police. As soon as she finishes reading the letter, she burns it to hide the evidence. When Inspector Atchison sees this, he immediately assumes it's from Pierce, thus he orders his men to save the letter and follow her immediately. As she leaves the area, another mysterious man follows after her who seems unrelated to the police. She heads to the train station where she cleverly times the exact arrival of the crowd departing from the train. The police lose her trail as the people slow them down, and she successfully escapes. Atchison tells Chief Inspector Jones that Pierce might have had plastic surgery to change his appearance. Jones is confused because there isn't enough proof to support Atchison's theory. Jones then looks into a person who matches the description of the courier and thinks it could be the new face of Pierce. Unfortunately, they realize they got the wrong person, and Jones makes fun of Atchison for his mistake. Atchison leaves the office after Jones threatens to stop the operation because it's already cost a lot of money. After a mistake made by Atchison, a specialist carefully reconstructs a burnt letter to uncover its message. The letter contains the location of Elise's destination and suggests she needs to catch a train quickly. While searching for someone who might be trying to deceive the police, she notices Frank, an American tourist and math teacher, and decides to sit with him. Frank was instantly attracted to her beauty and found it hard to speak. He took a puff from his electronic cigarette and asked if it bothered her. He explained that it was an electronic cigarette that produced water vapor instead of smoke, delivering the same amount of nicotine. She responded with disappointment, expressing her preference for men to do as they please. Despite this, they continued their conversation, and she eventually asked him to invite her to dinner. At dinner, Elise is surprised to find out that the man she's with is a math teacher. They seem to be getting along well and enjoying each other's company. Meanwhile, two undercover police officers are spying on them from a few seats away and taking a picture of the man, Frank. They send the picture to Atchison, who then gives it to a forensic specialist to find out more about Frank. Atchison is confident that the man is Pierce and immediately sends the picture to his colleagues at the Italian Interpol station, instructing them to arrest him once they confirm his suspicious background. On the train, Frank becomes suspicious of two men watching them, but Elise thinks he's being paranoid. As they near their stop, Elise says goodbye and Frank sadly leaves, hoping she'll ask him to stay. After a background check, it's confirmed that Frank is just a tourist with a clean record. This frustrates Atchison, who feels like he's hit a dead end. He tells his men to cancel their mission and act normally to avoid drawing attention. The train stops, Elise gets off, and then Frank follows. Back at the office, it seems like a spy is working for a big-time gangster named Reginald Shaw. The spy informs Shaw that Frank and Elise are in Venice, which makes Shaw change his plans in a hurry. When Frank arrives in Venice, he's unsure about where to go next. While he's looking at a map, Elise unexpectedly approaches him on a boat and invites him to join her. Despite his hesitation, he decides to go with her, thinking they won't see each other again. They pretend to be a married couple and stay in a luxurious suite. Later, the same mysterious man from France also arrives at the hotel. Elise goes into the bedroom and discovers a closet filled with expensive gifts from someone named Pierce, which she appreciates. Meanwhile, Frank notices that everything in the room has been arranged specifically for her. Upon Shaw's arrival, he tells his crew to keep an eye on the hotels in Venice and to make sure Pierce stays safe until he hands over the money. That evening, she gets dressed up for dinner, and Frank is amazed by how beautiful she looks. While they're eating, he asks Elise about her significant other, wondering why the hotel gave her gifts. She admits that she wants to see him, but it's been 2 years since they last spoke. Frank notices her bracelet, and she explains that it's from her mother, symbolizing love and the importance of accepting someone completely, regardless of their past. When they get back to the room, Frank makes them a drink and spots a bouquet with a letter. Elise reads the letter, which turns out to be an invitation from Pierce to a ball in 2 days. She goes out to the balcony for some air and sees a suspicious man acting casually on a nearby boat. Frank follows her and compliments her. Suddenly, she kisses him. The suspicious man takes some photos of them kissing, and Shaw's people see them too. She leaves him for the night and tells him to sleep on the couch. Frank is confused, but decides to sleep on the couch and read his novel. However, he dreams about making love with her during his sleep. The next morning, Frank wakes up for breakfast as planned by Elise, only to find her gone without a word. Suddenly, some men, mistaking him for someone else, try to kidnap him. He manages to escape and is spotted by Elise. Atchison's men see the situation and get ready to help, but Atchison tells them to ignore him. Frank tries to flee, but accidentally shoves an Italian officer into the river, leading to his arrest. At the police station, a detective misunderstands Frank's situation and keeps him in custody. Later, the detective hands Frank over to Shaw's men for money, thinking he's someone else. Luckily, Elise saves him and they leave together, but the men pursue them, leading to a dangerous chase before they finally get away. Back at Shaw's place, his men tell him that Frank has escaped and they tried everything. This makes Shaw very angry, and he ends up killing one of his men to show how serious he is about catching Pierce. Elise then explains that their kiss has made Frank a target, and she apologizes for getting him involved. She finally reveals the reason why everyone seems to be after Pierce. He used to be Shaw's private banker until he stole from him. On top of that, Pierce is also wanted by the British government for not paying taxes. Frank then tells Elise that he loves her and doesn't regret kissing her. This surprises her, and she decides to stop involving Frank in her plans. When they reach the airport in the morning, Elise tells Frank to tie the boat to the port, but she unties it from her end as he does this. She tells him she wishes they had met in another life and says goodbye. Then, she leaves him confused with a bag of money to help him get back to America. Elise visits Atchison, and it's revealed that she's a British spy who was supposed to capture Pierce. However, she failed her mission because she fell in love with him. Now, she's willing to work with the government again to find Pierce, as she doesn't want to endanger Frank anymore. Then, we see Frank in Venice, suiting up and lighting a cigarette. The next day, Elise goes to a fancy event that Pierce invited her to. She's wearing a hidden recording device to help Atchison catch Pierce. When a charming man approaches her, she thinks it might be Pierce, but it turns out to be someone else. She politely turns him down. Later, a mysterious man from France leaves a letter for her, which leads her to follow him, thinking he might be Pierce. However, she loses track of him when Frank shows up. Frank wants to dance with her and insists on staying by her side, but she tries to tell him that he's no longer needed. When she walks away, Atchison's team takes Frank away to prevent him from interfering in their mission. Once Frank is out of sight, she opens the letter with a key and finds instructions to go to a specific address. Atchison and his team get worried when she doesn't tell them what's in the letter. Despite her suspicious behavior, Atchison tells them to trust her, and they eventually get the address. Atchison immediately alerts snipers to prepare, while he follows the woman. Unbeknownst to them, Shaw is also tracking the woman to capture someone called Pierce, and quietly follows behind. At the police boat, Atchison holds Frank in custody and interrogates him. He accuses him of being Pierce, who supposedly has a new face. Atchison then demands payment for back taxes, which amounts to 744 million euros. The accusation shocks Frank and keeps him on edge. Atchison claims to know everything about Frank, including how he spent a large amount of money from a Swiss bank account to get a new face from a surgeon. Atchison eventually reveals that he was just playing with Frank and declares him for almost ruining his operation. He tells Frank that he will stay with them until the procedure ends. Elise arrives at the address and enters a building. Shaw catches up to her and pressures her to reveal the location of a safe, threatening her with a knife. Snipers are ready to intervene if ordered. Meanwhile, Atchison and his team watch the scene via livestream, waiting for any sign that Pierce might try to save her. Despite being in danger, Elise consistently denies knowing where the safe is. Shaw's right-hand man confirms that she does not know where the money is hidden. A police interpreter informs Acheson that Shaw will kill Elise if Pierce doesn't show up. This alarms Frank, who appeals to them to help her. However, Acheson insists that Elise is a capable agent and expresses confidence that Pierce will rescue her before things get out of hand. Just as Shaw is about to kill Elise, she finally tells him where the safe is. Shaw finds the safe hidden behind a wall, but discovers it requires a passcode. Elise insists she doesn't know the code. Suddenly, the sniper reports movement in the courtyard, which Acheson assumes to be Pierce. Watching the monitor, Acheson realizes that the figure looks familiar and recognizes it as Frank. Frank had escaped his cuffs using paper clips, climbed onto the balcony, and entered the building where Elise was being held. Shaw tries to open a safe but fails, and then Frank suddenly appears and claims to be Pierce. However, Shaw points out specific things about Pierce that Frank seems to know, including a different accent. To confirm his identity, Frank speaks in a British accent. Shaw is confused by all the identity confusion and decides the only way to find out the truth is for Frank to open the safe. As Frank approaches the safe, Elise suddenly confesses her love for him. Meanwhile, Acheson is in charge, waiting for Pierce to show up, but then Chief Inspector Jones takes over and signals the snipers to shoot the enemies, killing them. The police arrive, and Jones officially fires Elise from her job as an agent. They receive word on the radio that Pierce has been found nearby, and they rush to find him. Once Frank and Elise are alone, Frank reveals his true identity by opening a safe and proving that he is Alexander Pierce. Elise is amazed that she made the right choice in trusting him on the train, and they share a romantic kiss. When the police apprehend a man they believe to be Pierce, he confesses that he's been hired by an unknown person to visit specific locations for money. After the police investigate the safe, they find a check for the money Pierce owed to the British government. Jones decides to end the operation, but Acheson argues that Pierce is still wanted in 14 countries. Jones insists that the man claiming to be Pierce is dead, and it's pointless to pursue him further. Acheson is shocked by the turn of events and finds Frank and Elise enjoying a boat ride on the balcony. The movie concludes with the unexpected reunion of the couple. Elise teases Frank about spending $2 million on facial surgery to end up with an average-looking face. They both laugh, and Elise approves of his new look. The couple sets sail to begin a new life together.